We love doing this podcast.
Oh, yes.
We really do. It's one of the highlights of our week. And we're trying to figure out exactly the best way to both do this podcast and also the Blimey Cow channel.
Yes.
And we're not sure if having an hour-long show and then shorter shows on the same channel is the greatest idea. We're not quite sure.
Yeah.
But we're honestly curious what it would be like, or the changes that would happen if we move the podcast to its own YouTube channel at Blimey Cow
Podcast. At Blimey Cow Podcast.
So that's what we're going to do. The podcast is going to officially move. Not this week, not next week.
The first podcast episode that'll be in June.
Yeah.
It'll be 3 podcasts from now.
So if you want to continue watching, go subscribe over there and check it out.
The channel is going back to what it was before the podcast. And if you want the podcast, it's now going to be at Blimey Cow Podcast. We have a very dedicated crew of people. And so I'm not worried about moving it to another channel. Mm-hmm. And I think hopefully YouTube will like the whole subscriber to viewer ratio.
And figure out who the people are, because there's going to be not very many subscribers over there, obviously, but each person who's subscribed is the kind of person that would watch that. So maybe it would help YouTube to be like, oh, here's the kind of person who, and we can maybe send it out.
And again,
I think that would be good.
This channel, we're always like wondering about because, you know, for so long YouTube promoted it because we were making certain kind of content. We don't really make that kind of content anymore. And so YouTube's just like, I don't know who your stuff is. And now you're doing an hour-long show too. I don't know what to tell you.
Everything when you
sabotaged yourself.
Everything's kind of a shot in the dark. Like you never really know. So regardless, I'm excited for it to be on its own channel.
Me too.
Like even if it's not the greatest like strategic thing, maybe it is. But even if it's not, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of cool to have it on its own channel.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So at Blimey Cow Podcast, go subscribe starting in June. That's where the podcast will be. And further announcements about that to come.
Okay.